Others tell fortunes to swindle a few pieces of silver, but you tell fortunes to escape a death sentence, to break out of the death row prison. Only because half a month ago, a lackey of an immortal master came to your house. That attendant had his nostrils pointing to the sky, and openly demanded half of the Han family's property as an offering. You were young and hot-blooded at the time, thinking he was just a servant swaggering in borrowed plumage. So you decisively refused, but unexpectedly, you underestimated the weight of the word immortal. Just 3 days later, you were framed for the crime of raping and murdering over 100 people, and thrown into this death row prison. Looking at the blackened rice mixed with a few grains of sand in front of you, just as you were hesitating whether to eat it or not, a tempting aroma suddenly drifted over from the next cell. Turning your head to look, you saw a gray-haired old prisoner in the next cell, holding a bowl of white rice, topped with a large, glossy chicken leg, smelling that golden, crispy, deep-fried chicken leg aroma. You couldn't help but swallow your saliva, your eyes going straight. What are you looking at? The old prisoner noticed your gaze, looking at you with a half-smile. You awkwardly withdrew your gaze and said in a low voice, "Nothing, just envying your good meals, old sir." And the old prisoner gave a sinister chuckle, the smile carrying a bit of desolation and sarcasm. "Boy, you'd better not envy this bowl of food." Then, the old prisoner pointed to that chicken leg and said indifferently, "This is called the beheading meal. After eating this meal, I will be on my way." "What, you want a bowl too?" Hearing these words, your whole body trembled, and you suddenly felt that the tempting chicken leg was no longer appetizing, but instead permeated with a strong aura of death, making infinite sorrow surge in your heart. That old prisoner was going to die after eating. What about yourself? To be executed after autumn. It is now late autumn. There are probably only a few days left until the execution day, perhaps tomorrow or the day after. That bowl of rice with a chicken leg will be delivered in front of you, just when you were in despair. A crisp ding suddenly sounded in your mind. Congratulations to the host for activating the immortality system. Every 10 years of deep sleep will grant 20 years of lifespan. As long as you are alive, every 18 years will grant 1 free attribute point. Currently, you have 1 starting free attribute point. It can be added to comprehension, root bone, physique, and spirit, any one of these attributes. Looking at the system in front of you, you couldn't help but curse inwardly. You are about to be executed immediately, let alone sleeping for 10 years. You don't even have the chance to sleep for 10 days. But cursing aside, the strong desire to survive still made you force yourself to calm down. Your eyes firmly locked onto that 1 starting free attribute point. This is your only hope of turning the tables right now. Facing the current dead-end situation, the only possibility for you to break the impasse is divination. You remember among the relics left by your great-grandfather, there is a dilapidated fragment of the Book of Changes, I Ching. You read it as a leisure book when you were a child. Although you memorized it fluently, you couldn't understand those obscure divination texts inside at all. But if you added the point to comprehension, could you glean a glimmer of survival from the Book of Changes in your memory? Or even comprehend a method to seek good fortune and avoid disaster? I'll gamble on it. You gritted your teeth and concentrated your mind. System, add a point to my comprehension. Ding! As the attribute point was successfully allocated, you only felt a loud boom in your mind, as if a cool spring water instantly poured into the top of your head. Your originally chaotic brain instantly became extremely clear. Congratulations to the host for comprehending the mortal tier superior skill, divination. It can perceive the fortune of mortals within a few days. Just as you were pondering how to find a breakthrough, a series of heavy footsteps suddenly came from the end of the corridor. You slowly opened your eyes, only to see a fierce-looking jailer carrying a waist sword, humming a little tune and walking over. You looked at that jailer, and the Book of Changes fragment in your mind suddenly surged automatically. You saw a cloud of chi above the jailer's head. The jailer's Intang, glabella, was shiny and his face was glowing red, the corners of his mouth involuntarily rising, his right hand occasionally reaching into his robes. This was clearly a sign of an unexpected windfall. In a flash of lightning, you realized this might be your only chance of survival. Seeing that the jailer was about to walk past your cell, you suddenly lunged to the bars and shouted loudly, "Sir Officer, please, wait a moment." The jailer stopped his footsteps, frowned and turned around, and raised the whip in his hand with a look of impatience. "What are you wailing for? Is your skin itching? Believe it or not, I'll whip you to death." The old prisoner in the next cell shrank back into the corner in fear, wondering to himself if this kid was crazy, daring to provoke the jailer. But he didn't retreat, instead moving forward, staring fixedly into the jailer's eyes, trying to make your voice sound as profound and unpredictable as possible. "Sir Officer, don't be hasty to act. I see that your face is rosy today. You've just encountered financial luck. If I'm not mistaken, on your way to duty today, did you pick up 3 copper coins?" The whip in the jailer's hand suddenly stopped in midair. His originally fierce and malevolent expression instantly froze, replaced by a kind of shock as if he had seen a ghost. He subconsciously clutched his chest. There lay quietly 3 copper coins that still exuded the scent of dirt. The jailer was named Chen Mao, an old slicker who had mingled in the death row prison for many years. Picking up the copper copper coins happened a quarter of an hour ago, at a deserted corner outside the prison cells. He had immediately stuffed them into his robes after picking them up, and hadn't even told the brothers beside him. Only heaven knew, earth knew, and he knew. How could this kid locked in the death row know about it? The jailer widened his bull-like eyes, looking you up and down, and questioned with a fierce yet shocked tone. You, how did you know? Looking at the jailer's reaction, a heavy stone dropped from your heart, your back already soaked in cold sweat. You gambled right. Although this entry-level divination skill was only at a basic stage, in front of mortals, it was a miracle. Then, you stood with your hands behind your back, forcing a profound and enigmatic appearance. This poor Taoist knows a little bit of the art of divination. These 3 copper coins carry the aura of earth, and finding them at the northwest corner here corresponds to the DUI position, which indicates dispute, and also indicates a small fortune. The hexagram image shows it clearly. Why would anyone need to tell me? Qin Mao was confused by the words but felt it was awesome. His eyes darted around, that fierce vigor subsiding quite a bit, replaced by a kind of Philistine shrewdness. You can tell fortunes? Qin Mao sized you up suspiciously. Then tell me my fortune. What do I want to do next? You didn't answer immediately, but looked deeply at Qin Mao. In fact, that resonance between heaven and man just now had almost exhausted a great deal of your mental energy. After all, with only 11 points of comprehension, and the skill being just at the entry level, using it once made your brain ache. But you must hold on. Sir officer, let's speak openly without hidden meanings. You are guarding against me, afraid that I will use this to blackmail you, to make you release me, right? Qin Mao sneered, the grip on the hilt of his knife tightening a bit. You're quite smart, kid. Let me tell you. Don't dream about it. You are a death row inmate, and a heavy felon personally appointed by the county magistrate. Not to mention that you can tell fortunes. Even if you were a great golden immortal descending to earth, no one would dare to let you out. If you are entertaining this idea, I will chop off one of your fingers right now to set the rules. You've misunderstood, sir officer. Your expression remained unchanged. You even took a half step back to show your sincerity. Although I don't want to die, I also know the difficulties of the jailer brothers. Breaking out of prison, releasing prisoners. Those are capital offenses that cost heads. I would never make such an unreasonable request. Qin Mao's expression softened a bit. Then what do you want? I want to live a little longer. You sighed. At least before the execution after autumn. I don't want to starve to death. Nor do I want to be inexplicably killed by someone. I want to seek some peace. Just that? Qin Mao was somewhat surprised. Just that. You nodded. If Sir Officer trusts me, not only will I not cause trouble for you, I can also help you seek good fortune and avoid disaster. Or even, make a little fortune. Hearing the words make a fortune, Qin Mao's eyes instantly lit up. Since ancient times, although the jailer profession was considered unlucky, the perks were indeed substantial, especially in the death row prison. That was the place with the greatest power. Although the life or death of criminals was determined by the law, how they fared inside here depended entirely on the mood of the jailers. Seek good fortune and avoid disaster. Qin Mao licked his lips. The matter of those 3 copper coins just now made him believe your words 7 parts out of 10. Alright, since you kid are so sensible, then I will test you. You said this small fortune of mine turns into a great disaster. What does that mean? You narrowed your eyes, and activated the divination skill. This time, you didn't look at the specific financial luck, but looked at Qin Mao's face. You saw that Qin Mao's intang was black, and that smear of red glow which originally represented joy, had now actually become permeated with an evil, blood-colored aura. And between his eyebrows, a wisp of pink mist faintly entwined. But within this pink color, there was a deadly black baleful aura hidden. Peach blossom tribulation, romantic misfortune. Your heart jolted, and you blurted out, Sir Officer, have you recently harbored lustful thoughts? Qin Mao paused for a moment, then gave a lecherous chuckle. Since we're men, who doesn't harbor lustful thoughts? Can this also be considered a great disaster? You didn't smile, your expression instead becoming increasingly serious. This is no ordinary lustful thought. The hexagram image shows, have a mother and daughter recently been brought into the prison? As soon as these words came out, the smile on Qin Mao's face instantly froze. His whole person shuddered violently, looking at you as if he had seen a ghost. You even know this? This time, Qin Mao was thoroughly convinced. That mother and daughter were locked in just half an hour ago, kept in the innermost women's prison, separated from here by several walls. This kid has been locked up here all along without moving. How could he possibly know? Unless, he really is a divine fortune teller. Qin Mao subconsciously nodded, and lowered his voice saying, there is a pair. That woman looks, TSK. It's really enticing. The daughter-in-law of the wealthy family in Jianya City. Too bad her fate is poor. Married a destitute gambler. Her man lost the family fortune, was beaten to death, and owed a mountain of debt he couldn't repay. The creditors sued at the government office, and threw the mother and daughter in here. Speaking of this, a lecherous light appeared on Chin Mao's face. What? Is this also part of the hexagram? You said coldly. Sir officer, if this poor Taoist hasn't miscalculated, you and a few other brothers, are you planning to make a move on this mother and daughter tonight? Chin Mao didn't hide it either. Such things were too common in the prison. Female prisoners who owed debts they couldn't repay were considered worthless lives that no one cared about. As long as they weren't killed, what was wrong with having some fun? We do have this idea. Chin Mao rubbed his hands together. That little lady's skin is as white as tofu. The brothers have been itching for a long time. What, do you want to share too? Too bad with your physique. Stop right there. You suddenly gave a low shout, startling Chin Mao. If you want to die, go ahead. Your voice was harsh and your expression stern, your eyes glaring wide. How is this a stroke of romantic luck? It is clearly a death warrant. If you touch her, within 3 days, you will inevitably die violently in the streets, not even leaving an intact corpse. Chin Mao was suppressed by your sudden imposing manner, and became somewhat angry out of humiliation. Bullshit. She's just a widow in debt, without any background. I can play with her however I want. Don't you try to frighten me here with your alarmist talk. No background? You sneered, pointing at Chin Mao's glabella. The blood-red baleful aura at your intang is surging to the sky. This is a sign of offending powerful people. Although the woman's husband's family has fallen into decline, have you calculated the fate of her maiden family? The hexagram shows that this woman's destiny is unfathomably noble. Although temporarily obscured, she has a huge backing behind her. Her maiden family is either extremely wealthy or highly aristocratic. Absolutely not someone you petty jailers can afford to provoke. Her current misfortune is only temporary. If she suffers humiliation in prison, once the news gets out, or if her maiden family comes looking for her, you took a step closer, staring fixedly into Chin Mao's eyes. By then, let alone you, even everyone in this entire prison, will have to be buried with her. This is a great disaster of having the entire family exterminated and wealth confiscated. These words were half true, half false. You actually hadn't calculated the specific background of that woman. Your cultivation level was not enough. But you saw the aura of death above Chin Mao's head, entangled with that pink baleful aura. This meant that the cause of Chin Mao's death was absolutely related to a woman. At this critical juncture, a cause of death related to a woman, who else could it be besides that mother and daughter? So you boldly speculated, and even deliberately exaggerated the other party's background. In this strictly hierarchical ancient society, what did jailers fear the most? Not ghosts and gods, but powerful and noble figures with more authority. Chin Mao's face changed color, turning blue and white. Although he was lustful, he valued his life more. Your words were like a basin of ice water, instantly extinguishing the fire in his pants. Are you telling the truth? Chin Mao's voice trembled a little. Is her maiden family really that powerful? Then why didn't they come to save her? The actions of noble people. How can you and I guess them? You put on an unfathomable appearance. Perhaps it is a family test. Perhaps news is blocked. But if a woman from such a prominent family loses her chastity, that would be a slap in the family's face. When the time comes to cover up the shame, all of you who know about it, none will survive. Chin Mao only felt a cold chill at the back of his neck. He remembered those 3 copper coins from just now. This kid calculates so accurately. If he's accurate this time too, wouldn't that mean he almost took a trip to the gates of hell? Then, what should we do? Chin Mao asked subconsciously, already completely following your rhythm. You took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, very simple. Put away your filthy thoughts immediately. Not only can you not touch her, you also have to treat her like a bodhisattva. Go right now. Get some clean hot food and send it to them. Don't let that child starve. Don't let that woman freeze. If anyone dares to mess around, you have to stop them even if it costs your life. This is not only saving them, it is also saving yourself. Chin Mao hesitated, letting the cooked duck fly away from his mouth. And he has to pay for food to serve her? This made him very unhappy. But looking at your determined and serious eyes, the fear in his heart finally gained the upper hand. Fine, I will believe you this one time. Chin Mao gritted his teeth, pointing at you fiercely. Kid, you better pray that you were right. I'm going to arrange the food right now. If I find out in a few days that you're playing me, I will definitely chop you into pieces and feed you to the dogs. After saying that, Chin Mao stopped humming his tune. He turned around and ran out in a hurry, obviously going to stop his other brothers who were preparing to make a move. Watching Chin Mao's back disappear at the end of the corridor, you felt as if your whole body collapsed, sliding down to sit against the wall. The cold sweat on your back soaked through your prison uniform. This hurdle is temporarily past. Phew! You panted heavily. Your heart was still beating violently. That scene just now was entirely a gamble, mainly gambling on the weaknesses of human nature. If Chin Mao didn't believe me, no matter how awesome the system is, it would be useless. Crazy, truly crazy. The old prisoner next door had come over at some unknown time, clinging to the railings, looking at you with the expression of looking at a madman. Boy, do you know what you are doing? The old prisoner lowered his voice, with a trace of terror in his tone. That's a jailer, the king of hell here. You actually dare to deceive him? If that mother and daughter have no background, when Chen Mao realizes what happened, you will die a miserable death. You wiped a handful of cold sweat from your forehead, looking at the old prisoner. A gloomy but crazy smile appeared at the corner of your mouth. Old man, you said it yourself. I am someone to be beheaded after autumn. It's a dead end anyway. It's death either way. Why not take a gamble? You clenched your fists. What if the gamble pays off? That will be the beginning of immortality. Chen Mao is a smart person. To be able to survive in a place like death row where people are eaten without spitting out bones, and become an old hand, relies not only on ruthlessness, but more on that cleverness of sizing up the situation. The moment he left Han Changqing's side, he only felt a chill on his back. Han Changqing's gaze was too certain, so certain that he didn't dare to gamble his own head. Not afraid of 10,000, just afraid of the 1 in 10,000 chance. Chen Mao gritted his teeth. He touched the 3 copper coins in his arms that weren't even warm yet, steeling his heart. He turned and went to the tavern outside. He didn't skimp either. He took out his secret savings, sliced a few caddies of premium braised beef, and bought 2 jars of strong liquor. Along the way, he also bought a roast chicken and a few exquisite side dishes. Carrying these things, Chen Mao did not return directly to the guardroom, but took a deep breath and walked towards the innermost women's cell. At this time, in the corner of the women's cell, Zhao Xiao hugged her 6-year-old daughter Zhao Xiaotian, huddled in the corner covered with moldy straw, trembling uncontrollably all over. She was originally the daughter of the wealthy Zhao family in Jianya City, back then for the sake of love, ignoring her father's objections. Elope with that scholar who only knew sweet words. Originally thought it was a storybook romance of a scholar and a beauty. Who would have thought it was the beginning of a nightmare? Her husband didn't study for official rank. Instead, he got addicted to gambling. Within a few years, he squandered the family fortune. Finally, he was beaten to death alive at the door of the casino. The mother and daughter hadn't even had time to cry before they were sued to the yamen by the creditors, arrested under the charge of a child paying the father's debt and a wife paying the husband's debt. Mother, I'm scared. Zhao Xiaotian shrank in her mother's arms, her big eyes full of fear, looking at the spooky walls around, and the screams coming from afar from time to time. Don't be afraid, Tianer, don't be afraid. Mother is here. Zhao Xiao fought back her tears, gently patting her daughter's back. Her bowels are green with regret now. If she had listened to her father back then, how could she have fallen to this state? Before being arrested, she secretly let her personal maid slip out to go back to her maiden home to deliver a message. But she had no bottom in her heart at all. When she ran away from home back then, her father had said he would sever their father-daughter relationship. Now she is so down and out. Would her father still recognize this unfilial daughter? Even if he is willing to recognize her, can the news from this deep prison be sent out? Just as she was thinking, a burst of messy footsteps and lewd laughter came from outside the cell. Yo, heard there's a new top-tier beauty. Where is she? TSK. This figure, this skin, even the bad luck of this prison can't cover it up. 2 jailers with faces full of flesh walked over carrying an oil lamp, their eyes wandering unscrupulously over Zhao Xiaoxiao's body. That look was like a hungry wolf seeing a fat sheep. Zhao Xiaoxiao's face turned miserable white. She desperately protected her daughter, and closed her eyes in despair. She had heard of the rules in this death row. Female prisoners who come in, few can keep their innocence. She had already prepared for the worst. Even if she had to suffer all humiliation, she must protect her daughter. Hee, little lady, don't hide. Big brothers are here to love you. The 2 jailers sneered and were about to open the cell door. Just at this moment, a big hand suddenly pressed onto one of their shoulders. Brothers, what's the rush? Chen Mao carrying wine and meat, squeezed over with a face full of smiles. This kind of thing requires some mood. Come. Your brother just bought premium wine and meat. Let's eat and drink our fill first. The moment the 2 jailers smelled the wine, their Adam's apples rolled a bit, but they were still a bit reluctant to leave the beauty before their eyes. Old Chen, why are you so generous today? Struck rich? Strike what rich? Just seeing you brothers working hard. Wanted to treat everyone to a drink. Chen Mao, without allowing any explanation, pushed the 2 men outward. Let's go. That woman can't run away anyway. If this meat gets cold, it won't taste good anymore. Under Chen Mao's soft grinding and hard soaking, plus the temptation of good wine and good meat, those few jailers were finally coaxed to the table outside. While Chen Mao was urging them to drink, he also had to constantly keep an eye on the movements over at the women's cell. This meal of wine, he drank with his heart pounding in fear. He himself didn't dare to drink much, just kept pouring for the others, finally waiting until his few colleagues drank till they were dazed, spouting nonsense while lying on the table. Only then did Chen Mao wipe his sweat, picked up that portion of exquisite food specially left aside, and walked quickly into the women's cell. Clatter. The cell door opened. Zhao Xiao raised her head in terror, only to see that Chen Mao didn't pounce on her, but instead placed the food on the ground. White rice, braised pork, and a bowl of piping hot egg soup. Heat, Chen Mao said in a lowered voice, trying his best to make himself look less vicious. Zhao Xiao was stunned, looking at Chen Mao in disbelief. Sir, this is? Someone is protecting you. Chen Mao glanced around, and said mysteriously, a master calculated accurately that your mother and daughter would have a disaster today, and specifically instructed me to protect you completely. Don't ask so much. Hurry up and eat. Only when you're full will you have the strength to survive. Master? Zhao Xiao was bewildered, but looking at the piping hot food, and looking at her daughter in her arms whose stomach was already growling from hunger, her tears instantly welled up. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Chen Mao waved his hand. No need to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank that master. Remember, no matter what noise you hear tonight, don't make a sound. I'll be guarding here. No one can touch you. This night, for Zhao Xiao, it was a narrow escape from death, but for Chen Mao, it was incomparably agonizing. In the second half of the night, those drunk jailers woke up a few times, still wanting to get closer to the women's cell. Chen Mao played the fool again, and also took out money saying he wanted to gamble a couple of rounds, forcefully stopping these few hungry wolves. Several times they almost fell out and drew knives. Fortunately, Chen Mao's popularity was usually pretty good, plus the favor of that meal of wine and meat. He finally managed to fool them with some scares but no real danger. The next day the sky was bright. The sun gradually rose. The air in the death row also became hot and dry. Chen Mao, sporting two big dark circles under his eyes, rushed anxiously to the front of Han Changqing's cell. Master! Master! Chen Mao grabbed the railings, with a crying tone in his voice. It's almost noon. Why is there still no movement? Those few bastards have sobered up. They're grumbling over there right now, saying I ruined their good deeds last night. Now they are preparing to go in and find trouble with that mother and daughter. I really can't stop them this time. He could feel the big pie that Han Changqing drew for him seems to be about to expire. If no one from the Zhao family comes, he, Chen Mao, won't just have offended his colleagues today. He'll also drag himself into it. Han Changqing sat cross-legged on the straw, not having slept all night. Actually, he was panicking a lot too, but he couldn't show his cowardly side. On the system panel, although his comprehension had been given points, but there were no new prompts. He was now entirely holding on by the residual prestige of yesterday's divination. What's there to panic about? Han Changqing slowly opened his eyes, forcibly steadying his state of mind and saying lightly, this poor monk said, they are noble people. Noble people travel at their own auspicious times. What auspicious time? My little ancestor. Chen Mao stomped his feet in anxiety. If people don't come soon, that Zhao Xiao is going to be dragged out and stripped naked. When that time comes, we'll all be screwed. Han Changqing glanced at the sunlight shining in through the cell's high window, silently calculating the time in his heart. According to yesterday's hexagram, that was the Gui hexagram of lake over heaven, an image of resolution, favorable to have somewhere to go, and the changing line is at 9 in the 5th place, the central and correct position. 3/4 into the Wu hour, Han Changqing suddenly spoke, with an absolutely decisive tone. Right at 3/4 into the Wu hour, there will definitely be a turning point. Chen Mao froze for a moment, glanced at the sun outside. There is less than an incense stick's worth of time until 3/4 into the Wu hour now. Alright, I will believe you for the last time. If no one comes at 3/4 into the Wu hour, I will be the first one to kill you. Chen Mao fiercely dropped a harsh sentence, and turned to run back to the women's cell to delay time again. Time passed bit by bit. Every second felt like a tug-of-war. Sounds of arguing had already come from the distant women's cell. Obviously, Chen Mao almost couldn't hold on anymore. Chen Mao, you son of a bitch. Do you fancy that woman and want to keep her to yourself? Get the hell out of my way. Exactly. You blocked us last night, and you're still blocking us today. Do you really think we brothers have no temper? The cursing grew louder and louder. Han Changqing heard it clearly from inside the cell, his palms covered in cold sweat. Uncle System, give me some strength. I only have a superficial knowledge of the I Ching. If I miscalculated, we are both going to die right here. Just as the argument over there was about to escalate into a physical fight. Clang! A heavy bell suddenly rang from afar, followed immediately by a flurry of hurried and orderly footsteps, accompanied by the crisp sound of colliding armor. It came from the entrance of the prison. Stop it, all of you! A thunderous angry roar exploded throughout the death row. The few jailers who were clamoring just moments ago instantly fell silent out of fear. A group of people was seen rushing in aggressively. The leader wore a dark crimson official robe, robe, with a precious sword at his waist. It was exactly the head jailer of this Janya city, also known as Songyasi. And behind the head jailer, followed an anxious-looking old man who appeared to be a butler. Behind them were over a dozen fierce-looking servants. "Who is Zhao Xiao Xiao?" the head jailer shouted loudly, his voice even carrying a hint of trembling and respect. Hearing this familiar voice, Zhao Xiao Xiao in the corner suddenly raised her head and looked at the old butler. Tears instantly burst forth like a broken dam. "Uncle Fu! Uncle Fu! I am here!" When the old butler saw the utterly miserable Zhao Xiao Xiao, old tears streamed down his face. He fell to his knees with a thud. "Miss! This old servant came late. The master received the maid's letter and had us rush over overnight. Hurry! Hurry up and open the door!" The head jailer kicked aside the dumbstruck jailer next to him and personally took out the keys to open the cell door. "Eldest miss, you have suffered. The master is already waiting in the carriage outside. Let's go home." Uncle Fu took off his outer coat and draped it over Zhao Xiao Xiao, carefully protecting her as they walked out. As they passed by those jailers who initially had wicked intentions, Uncle Fu's eyes turned cold, and he swept his gaze around. Those jailers were so frightened that their legs went weak, and they fell directly to their knees on the ground, not even daring to raise their heads. Qin Mao stood aside, looking at this scene, completely dumbfounded. They really came. It really was exactly at noon plus 3/4, not a minute off. And looking at that butler's ostentation, along with the head jailers bowing and scraping like a submissive grandchild, how could this Zhao family be just an ordinary wealthy household? This clearly showed connections reaching the heavens. If they had really touched this woman last night, the few of them today would probably have already been dragged out to feed the dogs. Zhao Xiao Xiao walked to the door, suddenly stopped in her tracks, and turned her head to look at Qin Mao huddled in the corner. Uncle Fu followed her gaze with an unkind look. "Miss, did this person humiliate you? This old servant will have someone cripple him right now." Qin Mao was frightened out of his wits. Just as he was about to kneel and beg for mercy, he saw Zhao Xiao Xiao shake her head and say softly, "No, thanks to this officer's care last night. He even gave Tiana and me food, and protected us safely through the night. Uncle Fu, you must reward him handsomely." Hearing this, Uncle Fu's expression softened slightly. He took out a heavy gold ingot from his chest, and tossed it casually to Qin Mao. "Since you are the Mrs. Benefactor, then this is your reward. Keep your eyes peeled in the future." After speaking, the group, like stars surrounding the moon, protected Zhao Xiao Xiao and her daughter as they left the death row. The prison cell returned to a dead silence again. Only Qin Mao stood blankly on the spot, holding that gold ingot. Gold! A full 10 taels of gold. This was equivalent to his 5 years' salary. Not only did he keep his life, but he also made a windfall. He suddenly turned around and rushed towards Han Changsheng's cell like a madman. At this time, Han Changsheng was still sitting cross-legged on the straw, resting with his eyes closed, as if all the noise from the outside world had nothing to do with him. Qin Mao rushed to the railing and fell to his knees with a thud. On that face full of fierce-looking flesh, piety and awe were now written all over it. "Master, a living immortal." Qin Mao became incoherent with excitement and kowtowed 3 times in a row to Han Changsheng. "You were right, completely right. You really didn't lie to me. This wretched life of mine, Qin Mao, was saved by you, Master." Han Changsheng slowly opened his eyes and looked at Qin Mao kneeling in front of him. He let out a long sigh of relief in his heart. It's settled. His first chess move in the death row has finally been played alive. "Get up." Han Changsheng spoke indifferently, his voice frighteningly calm. "Since this poor monk said I could protect you, naturally, I will not break my promise." However, Han Changsheng changed the subject, staring burningly at Qin Mao. "This poor monk is now imprisoned, and the autumn execution is imminent. For the road ahead, I still have to rely on Benefactor Qin for some assistance. Master, please taste this. This is Zuetian wine. This is beggar's chicken from Chuanxiang restaurant. And this is braised pork belly. They are all freshly cooked and hot." After only half a day passed, Qin Mao's attitude had undergone an earth-shaking change. At this time, he had changed into a brand new jailer chief outfit, with that gold ingot he hadn't yet warmed up, exchanged into a bag of broken silver hanging at his waist. With a flattering face, he placed a huge food box in front of Han Changsheng's cell. The tempting aroma instantly dispersed the musty and foul smells in the cell. Han Changsheng didn't stand on ceremony either. He directly reached out and grabbed a greasy, fat chicken leg and began tearing into it with big bites. Having time traveled here for so many days, his mouth had long since grown tasteless. This meal was simply life-saving. "Hey, a share for onlookers! A share for onlookers!" The old prisoner next door had a nose sharper than a dog's, and had already come over. His withered, skinny arms reached through the railing like dead branches. Not minding the dirt, he grabbed a piece of braised meat and stuffed it into his mouth. Qin Mao frowned and was about to scold him, but Han Changsheng waved his hand, let him eat. Qin Mao then smiled apologetically. "Listen to the master. Listen to the master. Anyway, this meal cost quite a bit of silver. There's plenty. As Han Chongqing ate, he seemingly casually glanced at the old prisoner wolfing down his food. Old man, if I remember correctly, you said you were also soon to be executed in autumn. It's been several days. Why hasn't there been any movement? I haven't even seen a last meal. The old prisoner's mouth was stuffed with meat, mumbling a hee-hee laugh. A trace of slyness flashed across those cloudy eyes. Boy, and you believe that? This old man, was lying to you. Lying to me? Han Chongqing raised an eyebrow. Nonsense, if you don't say you're miserable here, how can you win sympathy and beg for a bite to eat? The old prisoner swallowed the fat meat, burped, and lowered his voice saying, I'll tell you the truth. I have children and grandchildren outside. Every once in a while, they will offer some bribes. How is this me serving time? I am hiding from disaster. Hiding from disaster? That's right. A trace of deep dread flashed in the old prisoner's eyes. I offended an unprovocable big shot on the outside. That person has heaven-defying methods. If I were outside, I would have been chopped into pieces long ago. On the contrary, this death row has heavy energy, and the suppression of official luck. That person can't divine where I am for the time being. I am not going out. It's not that I can't go out. It's that I don't dare to go out. Han Chongqing slightly shivered in his heart. This old guy is indeed not simple. Having eaten and drunk their fill, Han Chongqing wiped his mouth and looked at Chen Mao, whose face was currently beaming with satisfaction. Benefactor Chen, seeing your forehead glowing with a rosy complexion, you must have been promoted. Chen Mao immediately gave a thumbs up. Miraculous. Truly miraculous. Thanks to the blessing of that Miss Jiao, the head jailer appreciated me, and I am now the jailer chief of this area. From now on, what I say goes in these cells. Saying this, Chen Mao patted his chest, somewhat carried away by his success. Master, if you have any orders in the future, just tell me. In this death row, I, Chen Mao, guarantee you can walk sideways. Han Chongqing, however, did not smile, but instead slightly narrowed his eyes, under the vision of divination blessed by his comprehension ability. On Chen Mao's glowing red forehead, a thick wisp of black qi had quietly crept up at some unknown time. That black qi was like a sharp blade, hanging at the center of his eyebrows, even more perilous than the previous peach blossom curse. Benefactor Chen. Han Chongqing's voice suddenly turned cold. If you still want to walk sideways, I'm afraid you won't make it past tonight. You'll have to be carried out by others. The smile on Chen Mao's face instantly froze, and the wine cup in his hand crashed to the ground. Master, don't scare me. Wasn't that peach blossom curse broken? Miss Jiao and the others already left. Chen Mao was so scared his face turned pale white. He now firmly believed in Han Chongqing's words without a doubt. The peach blossom curse is broken, but this monopoly curse has arrived. Han Chongqing pointed at the coin purse at Chen Mao's waist and said coldly, You took the Jiao family's gold, and got the head jailer's appreciation to be promoted. But what about your colleagues? What about those brothers who were on night duty with you last night? Them? Chen Mao was stunned for a moment. They almost ruined things last night. I haven't even settled the score with them yet. Foolish! Han Chongqing shouted sternly. People do not worry about poverty, but rather about unequal distribution. Under those circumstances, you alone got the benefits, promoted and grew wealthy, while they not only didn't get a share, but were also almost hated by the Jiao family for their previous offense. What do you think they are thinking in their hearts? In this death row, does the death of one or two jailers count as a big deal? As long as they trip you up behind your back, or give you a push when you are drunk, you are finished. Chen Mao only felt a burst of cold air rush straight from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Cold sweat instantly soaked his back. He was also someone who had hung around the prison for a long time. Just now he was merely dizzy with joy. Now after being pointed out by Han Chongqing, he immediately realized it. Jealousy kills. Master, save me. What? What should I do? Chen Mao fell to his knees with a thud again. Han Chongqing looked at him and lightly spat out one word. Give. Wealth is a worldly possession external to the body, and even more so the root of disaster. Han Chongqing guided him patiently and systematically. What you need to do now is distribute your wealth. Don't be stingy. Those who do great things don't restrict themselves to trifles. Take out a portion of the gold, to show respect to the county magistrate superior above. To solidify this merit, for the remaining large portion, take your gang of brothers to the best brothel in Jianya City tonight. Treat them to the best wine, and the most beautiful girls.